The Galactic tournament was a spectacle unlike anything Ethan Reeves had ever seen, despite his years of service in the military and numerous battles fought across the stars. The Grand Arena, a structure of towering metal and glowing energy beams, stood as the epicenter of the galaxy's most prestigious event. The arena stretched beyond the horizon, filled with spectators from every corner of the galaxy, each race more exotic than the last, their distinct languages and voices merging into a cacophony of sound. The tournament attracted warriors, mercenaries, and champions from dozens of planets, each eager to prove their strength, their strategy, and their worth. But to Reeves, it was just another reminder of a life he had left behind, a life of violence, competition, and loss. Ethan Reeves, a former commander of Earth's most elite military unit, stood at the fringes of the crowd, arms crossed and eyes distant. His weathered face and the deep lines etched into his brow told stories of countless battles fought, many of which he wished he could forget. He had come to this tournament not as a competitor, but as a spectator, hoping that by witnessing this event, he could convince himself that his fighting days were truly over. He had sworn off violence, retired to a quiet corner of the universe, and tried to live a peaceful life. But here he was, drawn back to the spectacle, not knowing exactly why. As the competitors entered the arena for the preliminary rounds, Ethan watched them prepare warriors from different alien species, each more formidable than the last. Hulking creatures with armor that shimmered under the arena lights, nimble beings with speed that made them almost invisible to the naked eye, and telekinetic species whose mere thoughts could break bones. They were all here for one reason: to win the Galactic tournament. A contest not just of physical prowess but of mental resilience, strategy, and survival. And then, among the competitors, Ethan saw something, or rather, someone who didn't belong. A small figure struggled at the far end of the arena, nearly hidden by the towering competitors around him. It was a boy no older than 16 in human years, wearing an ill-fitting combat suit that looked like it was borrowed from someone twice his size. The boy's movements were awkward, his balance off. He fumbled with the controls of his exosuit, which was meant to compensate for his physical disabilities, but the crude machinery sputtered and hissed, malfunctioning more than it helped. His right arm was fully mechanical, a replacement for a limb he had lost at some point, and it jerked unnaturally as he tried to make it respond to his commands. Reeves narrowed his eyes. He had seen many warriors in his life, some of them disabled, but they had all fought with the same determination, the same fire. This boy had that fire in his eyes, even if his body was failing him. There was something about the way the boy struggled that stirred something deep within Reeves, a distant memory of his younger self, fighting against impossible odds. The boy's name, as Reeves later learned from the murmurs of the crowd, was Ziluk. He was from the Kichian species, a race known for their mental acumen but notoriously fragile bodies. The Kichian were scholars, diplomats, and negotiators, not warriors. Seeing a Kaishin in the tournament was unusual, especially one so young. But what made Ziluk's presence even more remarkable was his condition. He was disabled. His species already had weak physical forms, but Ziluk's disability made him an outlier even among his own kind. The crowd's reaction to Ziluk was a mixture of amusement and pity. Some spectators laughed as the boy stumbled, while others shook their heads in disapproval. Competitors near him smirked, exchanging knowing glances. To them, Ziluk was not a threat, he was a joke, a distraction from the real competition. Reeves could hear the snide comments, the whispers of how Ziluk would be eliminated in the first round, how he didn't stand a chance. But Ziluk didn't seem to hear them. Or maybe he did, but he didn't let it show. His face remained focused, determined, as he tinkered with his combat suit, trying to get it to function properly. Reeves watched as the boy's mechanical arm spasmed uncontrollably before he finally managed to still it with a few quick adjustments. Even then, the arm looked like it was on the verge of falling apart. Reeves felt a pang of empathy. He knew what it was like to be underestimated. He had spent his entire career proving people wrong, proving that a human, in a galaxy filled with physically superior alien races, could hold his own. And now, here was this boy, trying to do the same thing, in a tournament designed to break the strongest of warriors. But no matter how much determination Zilok had, Reeves knew that without proper guidance, the boy wouldn't survive his first fight. Against his better judgment, Reeves found himself walking toward the boy. As he moved through the crowd, he could feel eyes turning toward him, recognizing him as a veteran, as someone who didn't belong in the stands. Reeves had become somewhat of a legend among the tournament goers, though he had never competed. His military record was well known, his victories in intergalactic battles the stuff of stories told around campfires. But now he was just an old soldier, retired and tired of war. When Reeves reached Zilok, the boy was hunched over his combat suit, cursing under his breath as he tried to fix a loose wire in the mechanical arm. The boy didn't notice him at first, too focused on his work. Reeves cleared his throat, and Zilok finally looked up, startled. "Need a hand with that?" Reeves asked, his voice rough but not unkind. Zilok blinked in surprise. He hadn't expected anyone to offer him help, especially not a human, one of the races known for their physical strength. For a moment he seemed unsure how to respond, his large, black eyes studying Reeves with caution. I can handle it," Zilok said quietly, though the frustration in his voice was evident. Reeves crouched down beside the boy, ignoring the murmurs from the crowd around them. He inspected the mechanical arm, noting the shoddy craftsmanship and outdated components. It was no wonder the thing wasn't working properly. It was a relic, probably salvaged from a junkyard. "You won't last long with this," Reeves said bluntly, pointing to the exposed wires and cracked metal casing. "And judging by the way the suit's moving, your balance is all off. You're going to get thrown around like a rag doll out there." Zilok frowned, his pride clearly wounded. "I've trained for this," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "I can fight." Reeves met the boy's gaze, seeing the fear behind his bravado. Zilok was brave, no doubt about that, but bravery alone wouldn't win him the tournament. He needed more than that. He needed skill, and more importantly, he needed someone to teach him how to use what little he had to his advantage. "Look," Reeves said, softening his tone, "I'm not here to tell you what you can or can't do. I've seen plenty of warriors who started out just like you people who everyone else thought didn't stand a chance. But they survived. Not because they were the strongest, but because they were smart. They learned how to fight with their minds when their bodies failed them." Zilok's expression shifted, curiosity replacing the initial defensiveness. "How?" he asked, the single word laced with both skepticism and hope. Reeves smiled slightly, recognizing the hunger for knowledge in the boy's eyes. "First, you need to fix that arm. Then we'll talk." Over the next few hours, Reeves and Zilok worked side by side, repairing the mechanical arm and adjusting the combat suit. Reeves showed the boy how to balance his movements, compensating for his weak side by shifting his weight strategically. He taught Zilok how to read his opponents, to anticipate their moves, and to use his smaller size to his advantage. The boy was a quick learner, absorbing everything Reeves taught him with a quiet intensity. As the sun began to set over the galactic arena, Zilok's combat suit hummed with renewed energy, and his mechanical arm moved with a fluidity it hadn't had before. The boy looked up at Reeves, his expression one of quiet gratitude. "Why are you helping me?" Zilok asked finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Reeves paused, the question catching him off guard. He hadn't really thought about it. Maybe it was because he saw something of himself in the boy, someone who had been underestimated, someone who had to fight twice as hard just to survive. Or maybe it was because, for the first time in years, helping Zilok had given him a sense of purpose. "I guess," Reeves said slowly, "because you remind me of someone I used to know." Zilok didn't press for more details, simply nodding in understanding. For the first time since entering the tournament, the boy felt like he had a chance, like he wasn't fighting alone anymore. And for the first time in years, Ethan Reeves felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. The morning of the Galactic tournament's main event dawned with a brilliant display of color, as the distant stars shimmered against the backdrop of the vast arena. The arena itself, a colossal structure of steel and alien technology, seemed to hum with anticipation. Tens of thousands of spectators, from the farthest reaches of the galaxy, filled the towering seats. Their voices, a chorus of hundreds of different languages and dialects, blended together in an electric hum of excitement that reverberated through the very ground. The Tournament of Champions was more than just a competition, it was a symbol of intergalactic unity, where the strongest, the smartest, and the most cunning battled not just for glory, but for the pride of their entire species. Among the competitors was Zilok, the young Kaishin boy who had spent the past few days training under the guidance of the retired human warrior, Ethan Reeves. Standing at the edge of the preparation area, Zilok could feel his heart pounding in his chest, the weight of the upcoming battles pressing down on him like a physical force. His newly repaired combat suit hummed gently as the internal systems powered up, the mechanical arm moving fluidly at his side. The adjustments Reeves had made to the suit were nothing short of miraculous. The balance was better, the movements more responsive, and for the first time since entering the tournament, Zilok felt like he could stand on equal footing with the other competitors. But there was more at stake than just winning. Zilok had always known that the Galactic tournament was designed to test not only physical strength but also mental resilience. For someone like him, weak by nature and now marked by a disability, the odds were overwhelmingly against him. Yet the training with Reeves had ignited something within Zilok that had been dormant for years: hope. And with hope came determination. From across the preparation area, Zilok saw the other competitors getting ready. Massive alien warriors, their muscles rippling under their armor, exchanged cocky glances. Some of them had already sized him up as the easiest target, a throwaway match in the first round. He could feel their eyes on him, their sneers barely hidden beneath their expressions of indifference. But Zilok no longer felt the sting of their mockery. Reeves had taught him more than just how to fight, he had taught him how to control his emotions, how to focus his mind, and how to turn his weaknesses into strengths. As Zilok prepared to step into the arena, Reeves approached him from the shadows of the preparation area. The human veteran, who had initially planned to watch the tournament from the sidelines, now stood beside Zilok, his arms crossed over his chest, a look of quiet determination on his face. "Remember what we talked about," Reeves said, his voice steady and calm. "The others will try to overwhelm you with brute force. They'll think they've already won. Use that against them." Zilok nodded, his heart still racing, but his mind now clearer. "I know," he replied, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "I'm ready." Reeves placed a firm hand on Zilok's shoulder, giving him a brief, reassuring squeeze. "You've got this, kid. Trust in your training. Trust in yourself." With a final nod, Zilok stepped forward, the weight of the moment heavy on his young shoulders. The towering gates of the arena groaned open, revealing the massive battlefield beyond. The arena floor was a complex maze of obstacles, platforms, and hazards designed to challenge not just the fighters' physical prowess, but their ability to think strategically. Massive stone pillars jutted out of the ground at irregular intervals, while energy fields crackled with dangerous intensity. It was a landscape designed for war, where the strongest would rise and the weakest would fall. As Zilok entered the arena, the roar of the crowd hit him like a wave. Tens of thousands of voices screamed and cheered, the sound overwhelming. The sight of the other competitors stepping into the arena alongside him was intimidating. They towered over him, their combat suits gleaming, their weapons heavy and menacing. Zilok, by comparison, seemed small and unremarkable, a mere speck among giants. But Reeves' words echoed in his mind: "They'll think they've already won. Use that against them." The first round began with a sharp blast of the arena's signal horn, and chaos erupted. Competitors charged at each other, weapons flashing, bodies colliding with brutal force. Zilok ducked behind one of the stone pillars, narrowly avoiding a blast of energy from one of the alien fighters. His heart raced. but he kept his mind focused. He had studied the terrain, he had memorized the obstacles, and he had a plan. His first opponent, a hulking creature from the Tarak race, spotted him and charged forward, its massive fists raised to crush Zilok in a single blow. The crowd roared in anticipation, expecting a quick and decisive end to the fight. But Zilok was faster. He darted to the side, using his smaller size and agility to his advantage. The Tarak fighter stumbled, its momentum carrying it forward into one of the stone pillars. Zilok didn't hesitate. He activated the energy blade built into his mechanical arm and slashed at the back of the creature's legs, bringing it crashing to the ground. The crowd gasped in surprise. No one had expected Zilok to take down his first opponent so quickly. But he didn't stop to celebrate. He knew that the other competitors would soon target him, seeing him as a threat now that he had proven himself capable. From across the arena, Zilok saw another fighter, a member of the Nalkar species known for their speed and precision, lining up a shot with a long-range energy weapon. Zilok dove behind a nearby platform just as the blast seared through the air, narrowly missing him. His mind raced. He needed to take the Nalkar out of the fight, but approaching a long-range fighter head-on would be suicide. He remembered what Reeves had told him during their training: when you can't overpower them, outthink them. Zilok quickly scanned the battlefield, searching for an advantage. His eyes landed on one of the energy fields crackling nearby. The field was a dangerous hazard that disintegrated anything that came into contact with it. If he could lure the Nalkar into its range. Zilok moved swiftly, darting between obstacles, keeping low to the ground as the Nalkar fired another shot, missing him by inches. He could feel the heat of the energy blast against his back, but he didn't stop. He reached the energy field and positioned himself just at the edge of its range. The Nalkar, seeing Zilok as an easy target, charged forward, its weapon aimed and ready to fire. But Zilok was ready. At the last moment he sidestepped, allowing the Nalkar to rush straight into the energy field. The alien fighter screamed as the field disintegrated its weapon, and then its body, leaving nothing but a wisp of smoke in the air. The crowd erupted in astonished cheers. Zilok, the boy who everyone had underestimated, had just eliminated 2 competitors in quick succession. But there was no time to rest. The next wave of fighters closed in on him, and Zilok knew that his strategy of using the terrain to his advantage would only take him so far. He needed to finish the round and survive long enough to reach the finals. For the next several minutes, Zilok moved through the arena with a combination of agility, strategy, and determination. He avoided direct confrontations whenever possible, using the obstacles to separate his opponents and pick them off one by one. He used his mechanical arm to deflect attacks and strike with precision, never wasting a movement. The training with Reeves had sharpened his instincts, and he felt more confident with each successful takedown. As the final minutes of the round approached, only 2 fighters remained: Zilok and a massive creature from the planet Dracor. The Dracor were a race of giants, known for their immense strength and brutal fighting techniques. The Dracor fighter stood at least 3 times Zilok's height, its armor covered in spikes and its fists as large as Zilok's entire body. The crowd fell silent, sensing the tension in the air. This would be the deciding match, the battle that would determine who would move on to the final round. Zilok took a deep breath, steadying his nerves. The Dracor fighter roared, charging at him with all the force of a freight train. Zilok knew that if the Dracor got a single hit in, it would be over. He couldn't match the giant's strength, but he could outsmart him. Zilok waited until the last possible moment, then activated the thrusters on his combat suit, launching himself into the air just as the Dracor's fist smashed into the ground where he had been standing. The force of the blow cracked the arena floor, but Zilok was already moving, flipping through the air and landing behind the Dracor. Before the giant could turn around, Zilok aimed his mechanical arm at the back of the Dracor's neck, where the armor was weakest. He fired a concentrated blast of energy, striking the precise point that Reeves had shown him during their training. The Dra core let out a guttural roar as its body seized up, the energy blast disrupting its nervous system. It staggered forward, and with a final thundering crash, it fell to the ground, defeated. The arena erupted in a deafening roar of applause and cheers. Zilok stood, breathing heavily, his body aching from the intense battle, but he had done it. He had survived the first round of the Galactic tournament, against all odds. As the medics rushed onto the battlefield to tend to the fallen competitors, Zilok felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Reeves standing beside him, a proud smile on his face. "You did it," Reeves said, his voice filled with pride. "I told you, you just needed to trust yourself." Zilok smiled, exhaustion washing over him. "I couldn't have done it without you." Reeves shook his head. "You did this on your own, Zilok. I just helped you see what you were capable of." The tournament wasn't over. Zilok still had the final round to face, but in that moment, he felt like he had already won. For the first time in his life, he felt strong. Not because of his combat suit or his mechanical arm, but because of the belief he had in himself. And as he looked out over the roaring crowd, Zilok knew that no matter what happened next, he had already proven something far more important than winning a tournament. He had proven that even the smallest, most underestimated fighter could rise to greatness with the right mind, and the will to never give up.